Okay, welcome back. I know it's been a while since we've started, but I mean that's kind of the game of the aquarium world. You know, it all takes time, takes patience. As you can see here, I have the tank with water, and I have the piece of driftwood that I've selected for the tank. It's been soaking in here for a couple weeks now. I have nothing else in there. I ran a filter on there for a little bit to kind of establish it. But the main focus was the driftwood was dry, so if I had it without doing anything to it, it might float up. And as the water seeps into the wood itself, it starts releasing tannins into the water, lowering the pH. And so it just makes it that much better to kind of precondition all the stuff you put in there before you set it all up. One thing you can do to kind of get wood to sink down for our purposes here is, as you see here, I took a couple pieces of wood and I actually have them bolted down to a couple pieces of slate, and that allows the wood kind of get sunk down. And this is some pretty soft rock material where you can drill through this pretty easily. So that's how you would prep wood. One way to tell if the wood that you have for your tank is going to be good, before you go out and start collecting around your house or your forest or anything, a way to check to see if the wood is going to be good for your tank is if you take your fingernail and you try to dig it in there. If it goes in really easily, it means you have a soft piece of wood. It means that it might be about to rot or just not a hardwood. So when you put it in your tank, there's a good chance that it'll soften right up, decompose, and just, you know, ruin your tank. If you want to do rocks from your local areas and put it in your tank, be careful, because a lot of the rocks that you can find might buff the calcium and the hardness up a bit. So to check, you can get a little bit of vinegar or some acid, or like muriatic acid I believe, and put it on there. If it starts to fizz, you know that you don't have an inert rock. You have a rock that will, you know, react with your water parameters and buff it up, and so on and so forth. But if you do have those kind of rocks, or if you do have driftwood, they're a great way to control pH. So if you want a softer pH, you can add some fresh driftwood or plants. If you want a hard water system, like for cichlids, you can add, you know, raw rocks, and those are gonna buff the pH up quite a ways, just little by little there. So you don't have to go out and buy chemicals, but it'll be a nice natural way to do it. So the next step is, we had the wood that's pretty much conditioned. It's gotten pretty heavy since I first put it in there, and it's still on a big piece of rock right there. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain the tank, and then we can start scaping it. Okay, so now we're able to drain the tank of all its water. The wood is still soaking wet, which is nice. So what we're going to do is we're going to start laying in the substrate. The substrate that I've chosen for this project is going to be a base of fluorite. I believe this is fluorite red, or just general fluorite. It's great for plants. And then to cap it off, even though you can use fluorite by itself, I'm going to cap it off with a little bit of supernaturals. This stuff says it's like, you know, great for your water, this and that. A little bit of hype, but to be honest, I just like the way this looks, and I know that it's going to be safe for my tank, so I'm going to use that as the layer on top of it. Now what you want to do is, generally you want to rinse your gravel and stuff before you put it in there, but since I'm going to be capping it, I know that all the dust and all that comes with it is just going to settle down, and I'm just going to put it in there and not worry about it, especially because I'll be throwing in, you know, Malaysian trumpet snails, and all them are going to work in the substrate there. Keep it from going bad. Listen, I use dirt in my tank, so I'm not too worried. Now what you want to do, again, if you don't rinse your substrate before you put it in, you risk clouding your water quite a bit. And if you leave a gap in the front of the glass before you see like this lip here, leave a little bit of a gap and fill that up with sand, you won't ever tell that this was capped. You're not going to see the layers in between them. So go ahead, finish pouring this in. Okay. I'm going to grab a few more bags of this and we'll come back short. Okay, so what we've done here is we have the fluorite in place. I have like a nice even slope coming up. It's really low in the front, so that way I can hide the rocks with sand. And then it kind of slopes up this way, and it kind of meets up with the tree, and that again will kind of draw your eye and give it a little bit more depth than you normally see just going flat like that. And I've kind of played around with it, whereas it's kind of shallow back here, but it all builds up here, so this is going to be where it's going to push more of your attention toward the center of the tank here. And since I can hide all the fluorite with a little bit of the sand here, what I have to do is kind of go over it, cap it with another inch or so of the sand, and just finish my final scope, escape with that. Okay, so now we have the sand in place. As you can see mainly sand right here on the front edge, and you'll never tell that there's something underneath it. What I went ahead and did was I kind of kept more or less the same slope that I had. I made it a little bit less severe. One thing that you can do to kind of make escaping a little easier for you is these little foam brushes. You can pick them up for like $1. They're great because they help you move the substrate pretty well around. If you don't have one of these, non-used paintbrush, one that had paint on it, nothing like that, brand new out of the box. You can use that to kind of brush your substrate however which way you want it to. So I think it's probably about maybe 2 inches or so here, 4 inches deep at its deepest part. One thing you want to do is you want to keep your substrate at least 1.5 inches, because if you're going to plant anything in there, you really want it to have a firm hold on it. If you make it too deep, you risk your tank going anaerobic, where everything kind of gets dead underneath, and you have gas pockets and stuff like that. You don't want it in your tank. So a few things you can do to kind of prevent that is make sure that you don't use a material that's going to really compact too much. I know I have sand, but the fluorite is kind of loose underneath, so it should be fine. You can get Malaysian trumpet snails. They're little dark brown snails with like a spiral on the end, kind of like an ice cream cone. I love them. I put them in there. They go right underneath the substrate, and they just kind of burrow along like earthworms, keeping the gas pockets from forming. Another thing would be, again, just choosing your substrate correctly. And if you're going to make it really deep, there are products out there that you can add to kind of keep it from going anaerobic, so it's usually not too big of a problem. People tend to worry about gas pockets building up, and if they release, they go in through the water column and then toxify everything, which is, it can happen, but I've never seen it, and I think if you want to prevent that, if you add an air stone, it should probably cancel it out. But who knows? I'm sure there's plenty of people that have had that experience. I've personally never seen it, so I couldn't tell you completely on that. So we have the slope and the escape kind of laid out, and I think we'll save the plants for another video, and yeah, we'll kind of go from there as to plant choices and how to put it all together. I have a ton of plants that I got in stock, so I'm looking forward to kind of playing around with it and getting all the stuff finally in there. So there you have it. This is kind of the first step really to putting it all together. I'm going to do a video contest coming up. I think what I'll do is, if I get 100 subscribers or 5,000 views before the end of this month or before the end of next month, I'll do a 3-way contest, not just with myself but also with the local guys here in Rochester, New York. So if you're watching this and you're local to upstate New York, be sure to check us out. We're Upstate Aquatic Club. You can send me an email and I'll get you in touch with our mailing list so you can keep updated. We do have a meeting coming up at the end of March. I believe it's the 25th on a Sunday at 1 p.m. That's going to be at Pet Friendly over in Hilton, New York. So we got to check that out. And like I said, 100 subscribers or 5,000 views, and we'll do another contest both online and with you locals. So stay tuned.